All right. We are back with more exciting triathlon news.
More news? I don't know
News. Breaking news.
Breaking news. Breaking news, guys. It's February 2nd, 2023. Welcome aboard. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 656.
All right. I'm going to take your word for it.
Take your word for it. Yeah, we didn't cover that in our pre-show meeting. It's a beautiful but brisk day in Overland Park, Kansas. Hope everyone is having a outstanding start to their month of February. We're into our second month of the year. Lots of awesome things going on. Race season is right around the corner, and that's well, maybe not the topic of today, but we're going to go back and cover a few things we didn't cover on the earlier week's podcast. We talked about sprint and Olympic racing, both for beginners just getting into the sport, but also for seasoned veterans that are just, looking for a move, a transitional move. A lot of people say a step down or a move down, but it's not. It's just a shift, right? Like you think the people that go between Ironman and 70.3s to the Olympics every year, they're like, yeah, I'm just doing the Olympics this year, nothing big, just a couple short course races. And when in fact they're talking about trying to win the gold medal. So don't look at it that way. It's just a shift. It's just a mindset shift. And a lot of people, it's because life has changed things around. You're not looking to do a tremendous amount of volume. You just want to scale things back a little bit and make them more accessible, still compete, still be competitive, and still get the best at yourself. So we hope that's what you gain from the last week's podcast and also today.
It's a new
first
tool.
Time tuning in.
It's a new tool.
It is. It's a new tool. We appreciate your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. It's very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings on this planet, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes, looking at the very first 5K and sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with those amazing people to drive the discussion of the day. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let's right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, super awesome resource in a sport that is oftentimes confusing, overwhelming, and frankly just clouded with misinformation and stuff that you don't need to worry about, or just bad information in general. You can trust the people in this group for the most part. We're all not totally trustworthy, but for the most part, it's a solid group. To answer questions, get good feedback, and help you navigate the oftentimes scary waters that is the sport of triathlon: swim, bike, run, nutrition, gear, races, how to get there, travel, periodization, gym. It's a lot. So be a part of the group. Don't be a lurker. Participate and give back. And we'll go in there about once a month, do a little bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can. That's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey. And since we don't do sponsors and ads, we do at least offer one way to support ourselves and really just the podcast in general, but also support you in return. And that's to go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and shop for some gear, shop for some swag. We've got a lot of awesome stuff on there. So check that out. It's in the online store on the far right. We've also got all kinds of other opportunities to spend time with us, get some things in return, camps, coaching, and the like. So peruse the website, give back. And again, that's the best way to support us and the podcast in general. We will never do sponsors and ads, but a lot of people ask for a way to support us or thank us for what we do and the hours we put into producing the podcast. So do that. And then you can always hop on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform and give us a solid review.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm
getting a little more into the flow of this intro. I still hate it, frankly, but maybe we could just. I'm trying hard. Listen, I'm trying hard so you and I don't get scolded in the post show meeting with the boss. We don't get scolded for not talking about anything that we were supposed to talk about.
Yeah, well, maybe we should just come out hot talking about gear and then just leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess that we could do that. Yeah,
I mean, that is how we make it happen. We've been doing it for 6 or some years or something. But hey, I was at Del Boca Vista last night. I got a little story if you want it.
Of course. Listen, if it's a swim story, I'm in.
It's a locker room story.
All I want to hear about is you on the deck with the aqua aerobics class where they're playing the Showtime saxophone music in the background. They're doing the slow, tear off of the jumpsuit pants with the button on the side. If it's a story like that, I'm in. If it's about, anything that has to do with the locker room, I'm out.
Oh, well, I can't share it then.
Oh, no, it's okay. Then we'll allow it. It's
an expansive.
It's for the people. Yeah, this podcast is for the people. So yeah, let them have it.
I mean, it's kind of a loungy locker room, so it's not like just lockers. People kind of waltz around and take those combs out of the dip in. Like the little compartment. The combs in the like country clubs. They're in the.
Oh yeah, I know. They're dipped in dipped in what looks like mouthwash.
I know.
Yeah,
they got it all, dude. They got it all. But anyway, there's this guy there who I've seen him. We've talked a few times in loosely, and he's the guy that walks around the locker room. Sort of in the towel a lot, and talking a lot. But I've overheard some of his conversations, and I think he's kind of got a beat on me because he's one of these holistic guys. He sort of walks around. He's got one of those big. It's almost like a Hawaiian lei necklace type thing, but it's beads, but it looks like garlic. It's like I don't know if he's like trying to be a shaman.
He's it sounds like. Yeah. I know this person. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, don't carry anything on him but a yoga mat. I know exactly who you're talking about right now.
Yeah. And so longer hair, got the big beard and stuff. Anyway, he's kind of by me last night, so I'm like, hey, I walk in. It was kind of later in the evening, and I'm trying to make a reach out, because I hate the whole, close off into the world and never say hi to anybody. So I'm like, hey, how's it going, man? And he's going, he's like, oh.
He said, be well.
No, he goes, I just love great workout. And I was like, awesome. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm niacin flushing really hard right now. I'm like, oh man, this guy's got a beat on me, but I'm real suspicious of him in a way for some reason.
Niacin flushing?
Yeah, I'm niacin flushing. I'm like, I just go, oh, nice. He goes, yeah, it feels good. I said, I bet, man. He said, yeah, it really does. I said, damn, I know, right? Awesome. We're just going back and forth. And so I just like left it there, but in my mind, I'm like, this guy's got something going here because he's always talking to people about all these crazy, which interests me always, some kind of new like diet or whatever that he's got cooking or whatever. And I'm like, these guys can. So I'm leaving and I'm walking out and I stop in the lobby for a minute and he's about 20 steps behind me and he's talking to the girl at the front desk goes, have a good night. And she goes, oh, by the way, I think I want to try your detox system. He's like, oh, you mean the master cleanse? Yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, he's trying to pitch me, man. But he's real patient about it. He hasn't brought it up yet. But the niacin flush has got me kind of intrigued.
Oh, don't even. Let's not even. I feel like this is the beginning of a Ben Greenfield or a Triathlon Taryn podcast. Like that's exactly how it's making me really uncomfortable that we're about to start like going down that road. Because right now I can already feel, even though we don't usually attract that vibe, I can already feel at least 30 listeners Googling, will niacin flushing help my triathlon performance, right? So we aren't, listen, this is just meant to be a funny story. We do not in any way whatsoever condone whatever the fuck it is this guy was talking about with his niacin. How old was this dude?
Not yet. We don't condone because I'm Googling too.
Condone it. How old is this dude?
I'm guessing 40, 40-ish. 40-ish.
I'm going to go and tell you exactly right now about this guy. Because I know this guy. I've seen this guy before.
I might have been that guy.
No, you were not that guy. You were the total opposite in your 40s. He went out to his 1984 Volkswagen van.
Yep.
With blinds down. He took off his backpack, put it inside, probably decided to play hacky sack with the knitted sack he knitted himself for about 35 minutes. With a little bit of Bob Marley playing on in the background from his old school boombox. Then decided to get in. Then he went to I think he probably rolled up and got some hot tea at the Cat Cafe, spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then he drove home and parked outside of his mom's house where he's saving money for his next venture. That's the rest of that guy's day. I'm just telling you exactly how that happened. That is exactly how the rest of that guy's schedule played out for the day.
Well, maybe next time you're in town, we can all go get a tea.
I'm all in the nice and flush, whatever this is, nice and flush down the toilet thing. Oh my gosh, but it's a solid story. Anytime there's a locker room story, you have to listen. I mean, we've got some great ones from the Nashville Downtown YMCA. We just can't share those. No. We're already explicitly lyrics. We can't share any more. But today, what we will share is more information, more subject matter on sprint and Olympic triathlons. Earlier this week, we talked about how to get into it. The focus is on consistency, the focus on movement, the focus on fun, things to stay away from, the gear that you you need, not the gear that you want. Big difference. But today I thought it'd be because, again, as I kind of said towards the end of the podcast earlier this week, that there's too much info to cover. Because, again, and one of the things we really try to press upon our listeners on Tuesday's podcast was, sprint and Olympics shouldn't be looked upon like lesser than other distances. And for most people, if you lined up as a traditional quote unquote Ironman athlete and long distance athlete, and you went to the local sprint Olympic, you probably got your rear end handed to you. So there's a huge difference in specificity in a lot of areas. But what I want to talk about today is one, how to layer in intensity, because that's a huge deal. It's how you layer in intensity for sprint and Olympics, maybe versus 70.3s and fulls, but also how specific that is to where you're coming from and the background that you have. The intensity you decide to layer in, and this is why I think it's so. While people say, I just do sprints and Olympics. I don't deserve a training plan or deserve a coach. Only if I go long. Like every opportunity and every distance allows you the opportunity to get better, to get faster, to get fitter. Doing it safely and doing it intelligently in a way that continues to ramp you up and progress you in a safe, responsible way is how you should do it. And again, a lot of people get into the sport by doing sprints and Olympics or jump straight to 7.3s, and they just get a cookie cutter shelf off the a plan off the shelf, and you're misguided for such a long period of time. Your time is valuable, so don't waste it. And I hope this podcast today helps you get more efficiency out of your time. But there's two different kind of camps, right? When you think of people towing the start line to a sprint, and let me rephrase. There's three different camps, right, for athletes coming into a sprint and Olympic, which I think is why it makes it's such a fascinating and awesome experience to go to these local races that have these. Is you've got people coming in for the first time, right, that are terrified. First triathlon I'm ever going to do. Learned how to swim a while back. I've always been a runner. I've been a cyclist, whatever. You got those people, right? Nervous Nellies, which I was absolutely terrified. The first one I ever did was a pool swim. And then you got the other ones, right? The people who sprint an Olympic distance, that's their jam. That's what they do. That's what they train for. All they want to do is go fast and go hard and be great at it. So you got those. That's the thing. And then you have the other camp, right? That is the long distance athletes who have always done 70.3s or fulls, or that's their main focus, and they're just kind of rolling in a sprint and Olympic to, as they like to say, dust the rust off, or having a nice little hit out before their big race of the year. Or they're coming in from a couple years of doing that, and then life's gotten crazy, and they're like, all right, I can't do the volume that I want to do, so I'm going to focus this year instead on sprints and Olympics. So it's three very, very different athlete bases, and that's why you would prescribe or suggest three totally different types of intensity and focus. And also I'll start at the top and then I'll shut up and then let you talk for a minute, and then we'll go on through the rest. Is, the intensity for the beginner and the person coming in is going to be very, very, very different than the other two. All the intensities for each group are going to be different. For the beginner, one of the biggest problems I always see in reasons for injury are when they're coming in, they think that they want to go fast. What they do is, going back to the podcast earlier speak, is they talk about movement, or they try to work at a speed that's too long and too intense where their movement patterns break down and they get hurt, right? They don't have the aerobic engine or the aerobic capacity to, their cake is not even a layer. It's like a half centimeter of a layer. It's like the base, like the brown part at the bottom that you check to see if the cake is done. That's the layer you got. Now what happens is beginners come into the sport, Sprints and Olympics, and they think, I got to go fast to be fast. And they do this aerobic work, and then they want to hop on and do, 400-meter, reps on the track, or they want to go out and do, 10-minute hill repeats on the bike, or, and swimming is, for most of them, swimming is just swimming, right? Unless you came from a swim background, you're just trying to make it from one of the pool from the other, right? You're trying to learn technique. You're trying to just make it without drowning. And frankly, you're trying to be comfortable with it. So you don't really see it a lot in swimming. But the other two, you go way too long and way too hard, intense wise. And that's perfectly fine to do as you progress and you've created the aerobic engine to do it. But also most importantly, once you've created and established the fatigue resistance to where you can hold good form for a long period of time. And what you see with a lot of beginners that when you get in the sport, and this goes for all distances, frankly, is they hop on the track or they hop on the bike, and even swimming sometimes, depending on their technique, and they want to go too hard for just a little bit too long. Form fades, form falls, and what happens is when your movement pattern starts to erode, that's when injuries happen. And so really, really focus on keeping things short, right? 10, 15, 20 seconds. Add in, honestly, for most athletes that are just getting into it, especially from the running standpoint, adding in simple strides is about the limit of the intensity that you should layer in. Strides meaning 10 to 15 to 20 second burst, building, not starting out at 90, but building the 90%, really just focusing on flowing in great form. You're doing two things. One, you're making sure you're continuing to at least recruit and utilize, the your fast twitch muscles, which if you're just getting in the sport, you haven't utilized in a very long time. So you're recruiting them and reminding them that, hey, I know you haven't done this since gym class back in 10th grade, but we need to get back to work here. And so doing that is a great thing to, again, recruit those fast twitch muscle fibers, get a little bit of high intensity work without getting your heart rate too high because intensity is so short. But then you're also practicing really, really, really good form, because it's easier to practice good form for most people when you're going at a clip of, 80, 90%. But where people tend to fail and create mistakes is they do it for just a little bit too long, right? And you're trying so hard, and when you start to try too hard, your form fails. When your form fails, but you're still putting yourself through the pounding that you have, that's when injuries happen. And again, if you're going to go hard, do it on the bike, right? Even then, you're going to be, more working against yourself, right? By adding too much stress and layering in too much intensity. But that's the biggest red flag, I would say, if you're getting into the sport, or something in the sport, is not to do intensity too long. It's just it makes me cringe, honestly, to see how many athletes with terrible running economy, with no base, find themselves on the track with their local, group, absolutely running terrible at a speed they cannot sustain, waiting to get injured. I mean, there's a reason why they have an affiliation with PT groups, is because everyone's going to need a PT after your stress fracture. It just happens all the time. We want to go too fast, too soon. We're not ready. And then there's this common misconception and just a lack of understanding of what makes you faster, when aerobic capacity is what makes you faster as well, you pull from more of that than your anaerobic capacity, even in a sprint. So that first level, right? Not the first level, but the first one, group A, getting into the sport from an intensity standpoint, that is one of the biggest things to really, really, really be aware of, is too long of intensity and too hard.
I'm glad you brought up strides. I think probably they are the most underrated thing about this journey sometimes. Because of what you're just saying right there. It is that recruitment, and it's just not overdoing it. And I've always been a huge fan of being in control and also warm-ups. And when I think of warm-up, I mean, I just, every time, like last night on the treadmill, I just was like, all right, I'm going to take it slow, right? I'm going to get into this thing. I'm going to do a little walk, and I'm going to let my body come up. And I felt like, through 30 minutes or something like that. And it took me like 40 minutes before I started feeling, I was running at an easy pace too. And I just think that the warm-up is so underrated. And in fact, I was talking to a lot of people about it this morning on Training Peaks. And I think you can always, it's always relative as well, because even if you have strides, and I'm glad you because strides are not going cruising along and then just flooring it. It's always about, like, even in intervals, I talk about, they're, I guess, technically not warm-ups, but in a sense they are, because, you go into Training Peaks, and if somebody has like a 30-second interval all out or whatever, and you go in there and look at the graph, and their first like 4 seconds are 750 watts, and then they just they do a big peak, and then they come down, and then the whole thing fades away. And just in general with the training philosophy, I'm always about start under control and build it, and then finish strong, like you said, at 90% or whatever, 100, and then back it down, not like from 100 to 50, back it down the same way. It's sort of this ramping up and down thing. And I think for me, there's so much value in that, because it really does train your control. And there's nothing more important than being able to control your body and your mind and the connection that's going on without sort of putting it through the ringer every time you're going into something like that or dealing with that. I mean, there's a time and a place for stuff like that. But for the most part, generally, as we talk about, there's so much, I guess it's so rewarding actually to ramp an interval the whole way up, and like whatever your target heart rate is or watt range, if you finish a little bit stronger and even it out from the beginning. Like, I think of that as a racing tool too. For me, it's like, I don't get on my bike and automatically try to hit certain speeds or watts or heart rate right away. I let that all come together and finish strong, sort of in that negative split mentality. I do that through all intervals. Everything I do, I try to put that in there, no matter what it is. Just because something about, as I get older, whatever, it's just a little harder to recruit their muscles early on in the process. But it's amazing how, if you let your body warm up and get into a flow, how much stronger you can be toward the end if you do it right. And that's just a thing I've really been thinking about a lot lately. I think about it, but don't always do it, and it always backfires on me. Getting in the pool and not warming up your arms before you do it. I mean, most of us don't. And I tried it when I'm swimming at my best. I always spend like 5 minutes on the deck getting warmed up. And then I get in, and then everything seems to kind of flow a little bit better. So I think that goes across all of everything of what you're saying as far as intensity goes too, because, we want to just hammer it and really kind of push ourselves out there. And I think we should, but I think we need to, let our body get to that point where it's, can be more effective, and even you can get more out of it.
There's a phrase we use often with our athletes, and it's, if you can't move well for 30, how do you expect to move well for 2 minutes? And impatience is one of the most common, I think, personality traits we've all just kind of adopted the last, 5-10 years, because everything has become so readily available. We want everything now. But people try to skip through progressions, and they just want to go fast and feel like they're going to get ahead that way. But if you can't, skipping through movement patterns and progression is the surefire way to get burnout and injured. It just is. You're creating so much stress on a body that, for one, doesn't even really know what it's like to add additional physical stress, right? Like, unless you're coming from and I'll cover this part now, unless you're coming from an extensive, background in cross country running or cycling. And again, I want to make sure I touch on that is, we work with a lot of athletes. Sometimes you come from a rowing background or soccer or, basket, whatever it is, like they're still been pretty fit, or cycling or just swimming. One of the things you've got to be so careful of, and this is kind of going back to, like some of the developmental athletes that the USA has brought in other countries, like when they get cyclists or swimmers, they have such a giant engine, such a huge engine from cycling, or swimming or rowing or whatever it is, right? Years and years and years of sport. They've got a great aerobic base. They have a giant engine surrounded by aluminum foil, by they have no chassis, right? They have no, again, unless they've been a runner, right? And they've put in the work to put the mileage in, get their bones denser, create more elasticity and strength within their tendons and ligaments. What happens, and you see this so often, is they go out there and they try to pound the pavement with this giant engine, right? And I use the analogy of the engine of a bulldozer in the frame of a Miata. And that's what happens. It breaks. It breaks. It's not because you don't have the capacity. It's that you have to blend the two together. A giant engine is worth nothing if it doesn't have the chassis to hold it, right? Same thing going back to, one of my famous quotes from Joe Filio, who's is the head coach of one of the best, if not the best, ITU triathlon squad on the planet. And he says, there's no point in worrying about how fast you can go for 200 meters if you can't go fast the last 200 meters. And what he's talking about is fatigue resistance, right? And that means economy, that means how the form you can hold, right? So just please be aware that as you're getting into a program, and especially coming from, it's actually more, I don't want to say dangerous, but you're more at risk for injury for many athletes that come from a non-impact background with a giant engine when they start running, they start in triathlon, because they just know their body and they know their engine. They don't know the impact of what's going to happen. So they might go out and run super hard because they have the capacity, but their bones are like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm used to spinning on a bike. I'm used to floating in a pool. I'm used to rowing in a boat. This is way too impactful. And what'll happen is you'll get the stress reaction before you even know you got it, and it's too late. So just something to be super mindful of as you get into the sport in general, or if you're coming into the sport with a sporting background. Be very, very aware and very careful. It's one of the biggest challenges I know I've ever had as a coach with taking on athletes with a huge swim background or a huge cycling background, and they coming in, all they want to do is run hard because they can, but the injury risk is so high because their engine is so large and so vast, but their frame is so fragile and so weak, and that you have to build upon it, and that takes time. It's just something to be aware of. Group B, that was Group A. Group B, we talked about sprints and Olympics. Those are your jam. You've been doing them for a long time. They fit well into your life. Or even if you could go long, you just don't want to. It's not appealing. You don't like it. It seems like a waste of time. It takes all day. I can get up in the morning. I can go to a sprint and Olympic, come back before lunch. That's it. That's why you love it. And you like to go fast. You're an athlete who probably likes to go 100% the entire time, training-wise and intensity for you. And I think it's a great place to talk about pacing strategy for sprints and Olympics. This does not apply for the beginner, but for sprints and Olympics, for those of you that are very seasoned veterans, have been doing these for a long time, you need to sprint. Again, sprints, your Group B, sprints and Olympics are your jam, or Group C, coming from doing long distance and using these. They're great workouts for you, but for Group B, they're racing. And there really is no racing strategy. I will give you get out your pen and paper. This is a very lengthy racing strategy with details that I give our athletes, and I'm only going to give it once. So again, pen and paper, get a stenographer or whatever you need, record it. It's going to take a while. Swim solid, bike like there is no run, find a way to run. That is your strategy. There is no break. It is all gas. And it is that way from the beginning. You should be gassed. It is a straight, again, your aerobic capacity, once you get out of the swim, you're basically pushing high zone 3, zone 4 the whole bike, or you should. And then same on the run. It's a totally different beast than 70.3s and fulls. And it's hard for that reason. I find it incredibly difficult. Frankly, probably kind of scared of the distance because I've never been good at the 110% all out for a sustained period of time. I can do 90 all day, but when it comes to going that next level, I've never been good at it, or I've never taken the leap or gone to the well enough and often enough to make it happen. And we've got a bunch of really successful short course athletes, and I look at their data and their files after some of these huge races at nationals or worlds, and I'm like, holy F, how did you do that? You redlined from the gun, and that is a skill. It is 100% a skill, and that's where the intensity distribution and the focus is so different. You really, really want a very, very polarized intensity. You want to be either doing a lot of, zone 1, zone 2 work, long period of time aerobic based, or you want to be VO2 max or over. Your goal, your prerogative, your focus is raising your VO2 max ceiling as far as you possibly can. You could care less about the rate in which you produce lactate, because you're probably going to start producing it the moment you in the moment you get out of the water. But that is it. You want to increase that. That could be, and especially if you're doing like ITU, like draft legal racing. Again, that's a totally different skill. I won't go into that today because not that many people that we work with or that would listen to this probably do ITU style racing or draft legal. But that's a whole different beast where it's a lot of 30-second. 60-second, burst, 2 to 3 minute at way above threshold to come to the front and pull the pack around and then drop back and go, a little bit of watts. But that's it. It's all about raising your maximum aerobic ceiling and beyond that, your anaerobic system. And that's, again, in order to do that, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute, 4 minute, those are kind of the creme de la creme for you in terms of doing that, and then taking a lot of rest in between so you can go at it again. You can't add that much more stress to your training, that much more intensity to your training, because then what happens is you're going to be so stressed in both areas that you won't be able to do the hard enough. You hear the term, I don't, your easy days easy and your hard days hard. Well, the truth is if you take your easy days easy enough, then your hard days can be appropriately hard. And that is a focus for those of you that the Sprint and Olympics is a jam. You should be doing a ton of those because it's all about generating as much power and as much speed as quickly as you can. There is no gradual, right? There is no, I think I'm going to pace my way into the 12-mile bike ride. It's over before you know it. There is no pacing, right? And that's a huge shift for some people. But for those of you that do it and love it and live and breathe sprint and Olympic distance, that it is a race from the gun. It is like the 70.3 version of professional racing. It's like high zone 3, zone 4 from the start of the swim. And so that was the best way to train for it, is to really just raise that maximum aerobic ceiling, be able to generate quick power, hold it for a good sustained period of time, and raise that ceiling. But again, it also means the rest of your stuff has got to be chill, super chill, maybe longer than you probably, if the ride's only 12 miles or 15 or 20, you still want to be doing, if you really want to, do an hour and a half, 2 hour easy rides, and then towards you closer to race day, add in some, threshold intervals, because that's what's going to feel like. You're going to be racing at threshold the entire time. So you want to work above it, way above it, as long as you can. Keep the aerobic base. You can lengthen things out by managing and equaling out the stress. And then when you get closer to race day, make those intervals longer and at kind of, quote unquote, race pace. But that is it. And again, that is why I think sprints and Olympics, they're so underrated and have such an unfair stamp on them as not good enough, or the lowly sprints and Olympics. They're freaking hard. And honestly, that's why a lot of long course athletes don't do them. Because they're afraid of doing them. They're afraid of that feeling, or they just, and again, in addition to that, I don't want to go that hard. But they just don't do them. They just go longer, right? Again, it's kind of like knowing how you're right. Like the example I gave on the earlier podcast. I was like, I'm smashing it. Look back, 7.3 watts. Like, God, I'm such a wuss. Like, you just got to be able to floor it and go for it. And it's a skill, but it's also a skill that can be learned. And you just have to do it over and over and over again in practice. But that for Group B, that's your bread and butter.
I'm glad you brought up that part about the athletes coming in from another sport and stuff, because that's from my beginning, right? And when I came in, I think that's why naturally I feel like I did pretty well out of the gate in sprints and Olympics, because I didn't know. I never understood what pacing was, and I didn't understand how to go long and keep it under control and that sort of thing. And I swear throughout the years I've had my best luck when I've started with the year with an Ollie and then I went up 2.5 and then did a full, because it's sort of, the Ollie is kind of my natural wheelhouse, I think. And And then I started to learn, but the pacing thing was the biggest trick. And I think as you're getting into the sport, I mean, it's a good idea to start picking that up earlier and earlier, because if you have that natural tendency to, you know, because I grew up playing baseball, basketball, like hockey, that kind of stuff, where it was all out rest kind of thing. So I got kind of used to the thing, but to understand how to kind of rein it in was really one of the biggest challenges with the sport, doing fulls and halves. And I agree with you, man. It's a scary thing, because I haven't done any of those. I haven't done a sprint or an Ollie in probably 3 years or something now, and just done two fulls. And it does feel scary. And there's a part of me where I'm like, man, I know that's going to be good for me if I can kind of train and get myself in that mind space. But also it's just like that going for it. And I think that's the thing too, is like, I don't even know if I really have to go for it, but I just feel like I need to put myself in that arena again, you know, just to feel it a little bit. And also, you know, especially if I can build my base and be strong and trust it, you know, for me, I'm going to be in the group 3, where I'm not used to racing it. And I'm not going to, I probably would pace, you know, an Olympic and just kind of get the taste of it. And I think that's a good thing in the long run for Ironman, and especially doing 70.3. But I don't know. I'm going to go and try and do that. And I think the other thing is like, after you do, like, I think we talked about it last time, when you do fulls, you're like, you know, that doesn't seem like much or whatever. But it's sort of, you got to really flip a switch and kind of get into that mode, because it is something that's weird to think about. I remember after we did, you know, you were coaching me early on, and I think I was doing I did a 70.3, and then I did Olympic afterwards or something like that. And you're going to be like, oh, you're going to be shocked at how short this feels and stuff. And it was like that bike barely even got started and it was kind of over. And then the next thing you know, you're running a 10K and then you're done. But I think that, I don't know. I just think that they're really good. It's a good thing to have a balance in there. And obviously it's proven right now that we're seeing, like you said, these guys coming from these Olympics and they're dominating the Ironman circuit now. So it's a different game, but it's one of those games that I think we need to play. We need to figure out. And I think that's the way to become, because that's what I used to do, is the Olympics and sprints and then the half, and then I would do a full. And now I've just done 2 fulls, and in the last 2 years, and I just don't feel like I'm anywhere near as sharp as I used to be. And that's the thing about it, right? It's just sharpening the tool. If you're going to go all out, you know, you can go from 90 to 95%, you know, you can kind of maybe ease into it that way or something, but you're still kind of going hard from the gate. And I think that's just it's a good thing to put your body through. And I think it wakes it up, and you know how it goes, man. You go out and run harder intervals, and then you're off, you know, your recovery phase, you're actually going a little bit faster than your normal warm up or whatever. So it just kind of like helps you build that connection with your brain and your body. And I think you naturally, because we kind of tend to, it's like these aerobic thresholds, you know, I think we all tend to kind of low ball it. And that's one of the things we've been working on finding a lot more, is really getting a better zone 2 effort. So, that's it. Did you go through group 3 yet?
No, I mean, it was the perfect segue, though. I appreciate that. You're going back to your marketing days at WKRN Channel 2 News. The segue in for me at Group 3, or Group C rather. That was perfect, because that is when you see athletes, you know, and you know, I'm gonna put in a sprint and Olympic distance into my plan. You know, you're training for a 70.3, you're training for a full, or you're coming back from them. Your intensity needs to be a lot like Group B. You've probably done a lot of. Let me go back real quick. Group B, if you're doing sprints Olympics, you're coming from a 70.3, you're coming from, you know, a long distance racing. You probably already you've done a lot of aerobic work, a ton of aerobic work. So you probably got a really low or a low-ish VLA max, so the rate in which you produce lactate. So you've done that work. But what you really need to do is take that effort and take the stress and really raise your VO2. You don't really care about if your VLA max goes up. You just want to keep raising your VO2. Back to Group C, if you're weaving in a sprint and Olympic within a 70.3 or an Ironman block, two things. One, take it seriously. So many people will like poo-poo through, like, yeah, what I really want to do is, I think I'm going to do it, but it's a D race. Treat it like an A. Treat it like an A. Absolutely go for it. You learn so much about yourself by going for broke. Most people get done with an Olympic and say, I definitely have too much left in the tank, because you've got that long course, long, slow distance mentality. You don't know how to burn rubber. You just don't. It's you don't have that switch to flip, or you're scared that when you flip it, the light might not turn on, or if it does, it'll black out. So you just don't know how to do it. But it's an absolutely incredible way to get a workout in. One, it is a great threshold workout. The biggest mistake a lot of people do is they'll Ironman distance, same for the athlete, they'll taper for like an entire 7 to 10 days for a race that'll take them less than probably their longest workout for the week. Train into it, and go into it, and then just use it. Take your week, maybe take the volume down a little bit, keep the intensity there, and then on race day, go out and just go hammer it. Just go hammer it. Threshold session. It's your best workout for the week. And I think if you look at it like a workout versus look at it like a race, then not only will you do better and get a better performance, but you'll get a better workout out of it. Because I think everyone, again, that's why everyone will label, and it's even important for coaches to know, what races are most important and why. But when you lace them up and you treat it like an A. Because if you want to get the most out of yourself and the experience and learn the most, you can't race at a D level. You got to race at your A best level. And that might not be your best level of the year, but it's the best level you got right now. And most people just totally they de-race it. They put that, they put that out there. Well, just so you got, typical triathlete thing. Just so you guys know, before I go to the start line, this is my D race, or my quote unquote, this is my early season hit out. Don't expect anything from me. Don't expect anything good, because this is my D race, or my early season hit out, as the pros like to phrase it. Go out, and all that does is layer in the acceptance of failure. There's nothing really, no one's expecting anything. I'm not expecting anything. So are you going to go for broke and really just try to rip it? No, you're not. Because you go into it with this defensive backseat mentality. Get in the fucking driver's seat and put the pedal to the metal and roll it. Mm-hmm. That's how you should do it. Learn something about yourself. Find new limits. It's also a great way to do a test. Like the best test you can get is an Olympic distance triathlon. You're gonna run a threshold 10K. You're gonna get heart rate numbers. You're gonna go out there and you're gonna race for over an hour on your bike and get a good threshold number. Boom, done. Great workout, great threshold, good experience. So weave them in there. Timing wise, they're not a huge deal unless they're, the weekend before your race. Honestly, I think in Olympic distance, the Saturday or Sunday, the week before 7.3 is actually a great thing. It's one last workout. It doesn't matter where you weave it in. It's people put way too much time. Like you just did a 16-hour week and you're doing a sprint and you're worried about the placement. It's going to take you 55 minutes. like it's going to take you less time to go do the workout than it will for you to drive to and from the pool. So don't worry about the placement. Worry about what you get out of it, and really, really work that top end. I know for me, one of the best seasons I ever had long distance wise was when I raced, I think like 4 weekends in a row, sprint, Olympic, sprint. I raced every weekend, and I used the race, and you hear the term racing yourself into shape. And I just used the races as and I had a like a semi-hard workout earlier in the week to kind of keep my legs with some tension in it. But then I used the race itself as one big workout, and I just went for it. And then I ended up getting some of the best shape of my entire life. I think it was actually like the only 2 races I've ever won where it was in that span, was because I went for broke. And I treated it serious as a workout. I didn't have like this, I've got to win this race. It was, I'm just going to burn it. And that's what happened. And I got into really, really great shape. I had a pretty good race for me at Ironman Wisconsin later that year with you. But it's so underrated to do those, right? And then, but again, don't treat them like this, like they've got to be babied. Get after it and rip it.
Yeah. And what you said there about, wrap your mind around it and take it seriously. Boy, I can't even tell you how many times, and this is the other thing with an Ironman athlete, including myself, how you go into, you sprint or an Olympic and you're like, well, you kind of stand there and you kind of talk and you're shooting the shit. Like, and then the next thing you know, you're hugging a kayak 100 yards in because and it's a sprint and you're not mentally ready. And you didn't take it seriously. And you're like, what the hell? I just swam, 4,400 yards a week and a half ago. And now I'm on the kayak 200 yards in. I think that taking like because these are, it's so easy to be like, this is no big deal. And anybody that's doing any race should get their mind wrapped around what it is and be serious about it and be thinking about it as in you're going to go for it. Especially when there's a swim involved. I mean, you can go cruise a 5K or whatever with friends, but like if you're getting in the water, it's like never underestimate that. I don't care how short it is, because I've been there and it can really like get in your head, man. You're training for Ironman and you're doing an Olympic and you get out there and you have just a terrible swim like 5 or 6 weeks before your race. And then it's like, what? And that's a lot of times is because you don't take the time and mentally prepare and warm up and get ready to do it. So it's just a different animal, but they're all serious competitors.
I'm always shocked at how little people prepare mentally for sprints and Olympics.
Yeah, it should be more.
Like going back to the going back to the arrogance of that can oftentimes follow people that have done an Ironman or a 70.3 when they go down to the lowly, sprint and Olympic. They're like, it's just an Oli. And then they show up and get your absolute doors blown off, right? You get in the water because, for Ironman racing, a lot of people say, well, the race doesn't start till mile 80 of the bike. Well, for most people, that's an hour and a half swim and a 5 hours. That's 6.5 hours later. If you did a sprint or Olympic, that's your post-lunch nap after the race. So when you go into one of these races, you don't know what it's like to go at it from the gun. Your body doesn't know because all you've done is treat it like a, like an RV. You have an RV, basically is what you have, right? You get, that's short. You're an RV. Okay, that's it. And you get out there and you're racing freaking, Corvettes and Porsches. Like they go 0 to 60, baby. And you're like, yeah, let me load up the RV. Got to we stop at a couple of rest stops and a couple of campgrounds on the way. And everyone is flying by you. And then the race is over and you're like, man, I wasn't mentally prepared for that.
Yeah.
I didn't, it was uncomfortable. People are flying by me. I'm like, you got to be ready. Again, and it's so much of it goes to the mentality of and it was just honestly just I think the ego and arrogance that a lot of 70.3 and full distance athletes have about the sport in general that makes them feel better than you because they decided to exercise longer than you and do a race that takes longer. It's two totally different beasts. I mean, the expectation you have to race hard. And if you ask me, what would be my preference? Hey, go race steady, do a 4 hours, zone 2 ride with your buddies. For sure. Or go swim, 1 mile all out, bike, a 40K TT, and then do your hardest. No, I'm good. I'm good, man. Nope. I'm solid. I'd rather go out. So it's a total mind shift, and people that don't mentally prepare for it, you pay the price. So you've got to take those seriously, not as in, I've got to win this race, but if I want to get the most out of it, you got to do it. And because listen, I'll just be honest, you see it over all the distances, a lack of mental preparedness, right? Doing a marathon, being a big marathon and then going to the 5K. You don't know how to throttle it because you forgot how. You don't know what it's like. And I think it's a great lesson and a great experience for us all to have to push your limit and then go beyond it, because the limit is really just the ceiling of where your fear begins. That's it.
Yeah. You almost have to.
I mean, it's just, that's where it is. You have to push past it or get past it without even knowing it to realize that, oh, maybe that wasn't my ceiling. Yeah. And then learn you have a new one. And so I think it's such a great experience, but it can only be a great experience if you mentally prepare for it.
Yeah. The car analogy is a great one. It's almost like you have to have different cars and take them to different races. And it's like, another analogy, it's almost like the football game where we talk about all the time, the team that comes out in the first quarter and they go up 21-0, they come out just going balls out to the walls. And then those teams with that longer, stronger, more endurance mentality end up coming and beating them 28-21. They don't score the rest of the game. It's kind of the same thing. Ironman is a full football game. The sprints and Olympics are more like the first quarter. And you got to come out of that locker room hot, or you're going to get just smoked. And the other way around is like you have to, warm up the engine and let it get rolling before you get, start turning it over at mile 80 of the bike like you were talking about.
Yeah, and it is. It's a skill and it's a faith that you just got to go with. Like, like I'm just thinking through like one of the athletes we have that did last year, did an Ironman late in the season and had an incredible race, PR. Then earlier in the year qualified for Worlds from Team USA doing duathlon and sprint distance, and he regularly do so much of his easy running in like the low 9s, and then on race day he's running in the high 5s. Like it's kind of like you talked about the like having the car. It's like you have to have a 3-car garage, right? Like you got to know what you're gonna need for race day, or how to at least soup it up and put some nitric oxide on your RV and hopefully give yourself a better shot.
Sleeper.
Go too fast, too furious with your camper. But it's you should all do it. And again, just kind of to like close it out. If you want the sport to grow, show up where the roots are. Don't be hanging out at the treetops all day, shouting from the rooftops, I'm an Ironman, where's the sport going? I'm a sympathy, and never show up down at the bottom where the grassroots grow. And that's Sprint and Olympics. And it's not because that's where they need the most help. It's because that's where the sport grows. It's where people come to find the sport, right? And I also think that's why the sport is missing so many opportunities with jumping straight to 7.3s, from couch to 70.3 or couch to Ironman. You miss the importance of, you miss the connectivity. You miss going and seeing your buddies at the local race. Like that's where you make impacts. That's where you set an example, and that's where other people see that everything like that matters. That's how you grow. Like no, you don't skip steps in other sports. Like and that's why I love that so many ultra events, even 50 and some of the 100, most of the hardest 100-miler events on the planet, they have prerequisites. You have to either have done 100-milers already or done 50s. And I think they do it for 2 reasons. 1, to show you're capable, but 2, that you're in the sport, because they want people around that aren't there for, to me, it's very similar to like the people that pay, tens of 20s of thousands of dollars to go out and hunt some trapped animal in a fence, right? That's what it feels like to an extent. And like you want people in the sport that want to be around, that are in it for the long haul, not here for a one and done and to put it on their wall as a mount. Because all it does is do them a favor when they look, it's hanging, their Ironman medal is in the background when they're on their Zoom call with the rest of their, the CFOs in the business. You want to be out there with everyone, showing, that anyone can do this, showing that every distance matters, that every race matters. And that's how we grow things. And we've just gotten so distanced from the importance of that distance that it's hurt the sport in it. But it's also fed, right, by the fact that the triathlon, the sport, is predominantly driven and marketed by a business. Right, Ironman and Challenge and all those races that are all long, right? It's that's where the money is, and so as people go, and that's where all the money is put behind. Right? They put on great events, they put on a big hoopla, right? It's a big, huge event, and so it drives people to it. People want the experience. So I would love to, and if you're in our closed Crushing Iron group, like our Facebook page, if you know of local events, the grassroots events that put on, because. And some of them don't. Some of them don't put on a great event. That's just a fact. But some put on amazing events. Put those out there. This is a great event. This is a great experience, because just like Ironman, we talked about this a few weeks ago, just like Ironman Distance Racing, it's really all about the race director. And it's about the production that they put on or don't put on. The Ironman brand is a brand. Right? Like they don't get nearly as it's and the race director has the responsibility of putting on the great race. And that goes from the ground up, right? It's from sprints all the way up to a full. How well can you put on a race? And there are a lot of amazing sprint and Olympic distance races. So put those out there, sign up for them, go do them. They are great and they matter. Because listen, if we don't start participating in the beginning of the pipeline, the pipeline gets shorter until there is no pipeline. And the pipeline in the sport, the youth, middle school, high school, under 23, draft league, all the way up. If you want the sport to be around and you want races to do, then you got to support from every end of the spectrum. And so please flood those with our Facebook group. We don't want discount codes. People ask too much for discount codes. Don't ask for them, please. That stuff's hard enough to put on these, well, I go to the local tri club who's a friend of this tri club over in, Mississippi. Can I get a discount code? Just pay the fucking $50 and go race. Seriously, like for triathletes to ask for consistent, this is a short rant, but the amount of discount codes triathletes ask for is like supersedes any other sport, period. They're like, it's an expensive sport, right? And you put on great events. Man, that event was terrible. Every athlete asks for a discount code before the race. Well, they don't make any money to put on a great event. Pay the piper, right? Put these, support putting these events on. Do what you can. Volunteer. And give back. It's the only way to get the sport to grow further.
Yeah, I'm behind you, man. And go out and support them, man. If you're not racing, go out and cheer them on. That could change somebody's life.
Yeah, I'm about to get so much hate mail from the coupon clippers.
The coupon clippers.
I know, man. I know a lot of them. I'm all about getting a good deal, but when it comes to stuff like that, because I used to work in 15 years, 13 years ago, I used to work in a triathlon store. Like, always sold us triathlon gear. Every single, and this is for bike shops too, bike stores, running stores, anything associated with endurance. Like, I'm in so-and-so club. Do I get a discount? I'm like, you're in here shopping for $180 Nike shoes, and you're asking me for a discount? No. That's how people go out of business. Everyone wants a discount. Everyone wants less. No one wants to give more. Right? You don't have to tip them, just support them. On the other half, go in there, try on a shoe, and then go on Amazon and buy it. It's we gotta. It's, I don't know. It just bothers me.
I know. There was a time after we were talking to Steve Del Monte once about an Atlantic City race director, and we were working on something, and I asked if they had a discount code for the race. He goes, "We don't do discount codes. We do awesome."
Yeah, exactly.
And then ever since then, I'm like, oh. All right, buddy. My bad. Exactly.
Like, we do awesome. That's what you should be. If you want to be awesome, support him and be awesome. We've been awesome today. We hope you took a little bit of awesomeness from the podcast itself. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Next week, we got Run Camp, our favorite camp. That starts for us on Wednesday. Both of us are traveling earlier in the week, so we'll knock out the How to Not Suck at Swimming 2-parter. So you can keep up with your regularly scheduled programming of 2 podcasts a week. We'll get that out for you, so be on the lookout. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for advice, camps, coaching, or anything like that, or support us through gear, that's your place to go. And if you have any questions about anything and everything, you can email Mike, CrushingIron@gmail.com. We got a new 20% off the Nice and Plush package. Or if you want to reach out to me with questions, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
Yeah. I will report more later after I see my boy.
Please do.
Yeah. I'm going to go in there and he's going to be all red-faced today. Feels awesome, man.
Huge, Nice and Plush, bro.
What happened, man?
Much niacin, dude. He went to GNC and popped too many B complex pills, and now he's just flushed.
Ah, it feels.
That's what you gotta call him from now on. Is his nickname?
Flush.
The Royal Flush.
The Royal Flush.
Flush. He'll love it.
How's the flush, man?
Yeah, how's the flush, bro?
Love it.
I got you. And we love you guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you, man.
See you, man.